Native warriors who defied the U.S. government. The warrior woman who brought down General Custer. She was a fierce warrior of the Northern Cheyenne, known as Buffalo Calf Road Woman. When General Custer and the U.S. 7th Cavalry marched into the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, they expected an easy victory, but she had other plans. Months earlier, she had already earned fame by riding into gunfire to save her wounded brother during the Battle of the Rosebud. Her bravery inspired her people, and she was feared by her enemies. At Little Bighorn, she fought alongside men, rifle in hand, her horse charging through chaos. According to Cheyenne oral history, it was she who struck the blow that knocked Custer from his horse, turning the tide of the fight. Custer's forces were overwhelmed and he never left the battlefield alive. For the Cheyenne, her courage became legend. For her enemies, she was the woman who brought down a general. If you think her courage deserves to be remembered, share this story. The Lakota man who shot a U.S. officer and walked free. This man shot a U.S. Army officer point blank and walked free. His name was Plenty Horses, a Lakota Sioux who had just returned from years at the Carlisle Indian School, where Native children were stripped of their language, culture, and identity. But when he came back to South Dakota, he returned to bloodshed. The Wounded Knee Massacre had just occurred. Hundreds of Lakota men, women, and children, unarmed, were gunned down by U.S. troops. Tensions were at a boiling point. And just days later, Plenty Horses approached Lieutenant Edward Casey and pulled the trigger. He was immediately arrested. The U.S. government wanted to make an example of him, charge him with murder. But then, something unexpected happened. His lawyers made a bold argument. If the U.S. was at war with the Lakota, then what Plenty Horses did wasn't murder. It was war. And the court agreed. In 1891, a jury acquitted him. Because convicting Plenty Horses would have meant admitting that the massacre at Wounded Knee wasn't just a tragedy, it was an act of war. Should he have been punished, or was justice served? Let us know in the comments. The Comanche warrior who survived Fort Reno. This man was born in 1807, during the golden age of the Plains tribes. A Cheyenne warrior, he lived through the height of buffalo hunts, freedom on horseback, and the rising clash with the United States. At 67, he joined fellow warriors in an attack on Fort Reno in 1874, while it was still under construction. During the fight, he was badly burned, earning the name by which history remembers him, burnt all over. But unlike many who perished in war or disease, he survived. In 1914, a photograph captured him at the astonishing age of 107, standing proud in beads, vest and hat, a living bridge between two worlds. 3 years later, at nearly 110, burnt all over, died. His life stretched from the freedom of the open plains to the confinement of the reservation era, making him one of the last direct witnesses to a way of life now vanished. Tell me in the comments if you have heard of him before. The tribe the U.S. never defeated. After the Indian Removal Act passed in 1830, tribe after tribe across the Southeast was forced from their lands. It became known as the Trail of Tears, but in Florida, one tribe refused to go. The Seminoles didn't sign a treaty. They didn't surrender. When U.S. soldiers came to remove them, they burned their villages and vanished into the Everglades. What followed was a brutal 7-year guerrilla war. Thousands of troops sent into swamps they couldn't navigate. Over $30 million spent. No victory. The Seminoles struck fast, disappeared faster. They knew the land. The U.S. didn't. They couldn't be tracked, couldn't be caught. Eventually the government gave up. There was no peace treaty because the Seminoles never surrendered, and they never left. To this day, they remain in Florida, still sovereign, still free, still unconquered. Their story isn't just history, it's living proof of resilience. Like, share, and follow to keep stories like this alive. The famous Apache warrior. He was more than a warrior. He became a legend. His name was Geronimo, the most feared Apache fighter in American history. Born in 1829, he lived through relentless attacks as U.S. and Mexican forces invaded Apache lands. But his life changed forever when Mexican soldiers massacred his wife, children, and mother. From that moment, he swore vengeance. Geronimo became known for his unmatched courage and near-supernatural survival. He led daring raids across the Southwest, slipping through mountains and deserts where no army could catch him. Soldiers said he could see into the future, vanish into thin air, and strike without warning. For decades, Geronimo resisted capture, outsmarting thousands of U.S. and Mexican troops. He finally surrendered in 1886, one of the last Apache leaders to do so. To some, he was a brutal enemy. To his people, he was the embodiment of resistance, refusing to bow to conquest. Geronimo's name still echoes today, symbol of fear to his foes but of freedom to his nation. The fearless Comanche warrior. He was the warrior chief of the Nocona Comanche, feared, respected, and remembered in Texas frontier history. His name was Peta Nocona. Born into a world of raids, battles, and survival on the plains, he rose as a skilled horseman and fighter. His people saw him as a leader who could stand against relentless U.S. expansion and rival tribes alike. Peta Nocona is best known for his marriage to Cynthia Ann Parker, a white girl kidnapped by the Comanche as a child, who fully embraced Comanche life. Together they had children, including the future Comanche chief Quanah Parker. But his story ends in tragedy. In 1860, during the Battle of Pease River, Texas Rangers attacked his band. Many believed Peta Nocona was killed that day, while Cynthia Ann and their young daughter were captured. But Comanche accounts, especially from his son Quanah, insisted he survived Pease River, only to die a few years later from wounds or illness. What is certain is his legacy. Through his son, Quanah, Peta Nocona's bloodline shaped the final chapter of Comanche power on the frontier. The wise leader guiding the Comanche through a new era. This man was born into two worlds but belonged fully to neither. His mother, Cynthia Ann Parker, was a white woman kidnapped in 1836 at just 9 years old and raised by the Comanche. His father, Peta Nocona, was a respected Comanche chief. Quanah grew up to become one of the last great leaders of the Comanche people. He was known for his fearlessness in battle, leading raids across Texas as settlers pushed deeper into Comanche lands. But after the U.S. Army forced his people onto reservations, Quanah adapted in ways few could. He became a bridge between cultures, meeting with presidents, adopting aspects of American life, and even becoming wealthy as a rancher. Yet he never abandoned his roots. Quanah wore his hair long, kept multiple wives in Comanche tradition, and fiercely defended his people's identity. He even formed a lifelong bond with Herman Lehmann, a white boy captured and raised by the Comanche. Do you know Herman's story? The Apache warrior who captured Herman Lehmann. Do you know who captured the boy Herman Lehmann in 1870s Texas? It was an Apache warrior named Chevato. Born into the fierce struggle between his people and U.S. expansion, Chevato grew up in a world of constant raids, survival, and resistance. He earned respect as a skilled fighter and leader, taking part in battles that defined the Apache fight for freedom. During one of these raids, Chevato took young Herman Lehmann alive, pulling him into Apache life. But this was only one chapter of his remarkable story. Few know that Chevato later switched sides, becoming a scout for the U.S. Army, fighting against his own people, even tracking Geronimo. Haunted by the destruction of Apache life, he lived through the violent clash of two worlds, carrying both loyalty and betrayal on his shoulders. In old age, Chevato shared his experiences in a rare autobiography, offering one of the few first-hand Apache perspectives of that time. His life was filled with contradictions: raider, warrior, scout, survivor. But through it all, Chevato remained a living symbol of the Apache struggle to endure. Which story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments.